Maybe just as the games are going on, we'll be having some few. We'll just be having some chats. Yeah, as we continue. Like for example, maybe say someone might ask me, why are we playing the Grand Prix events? Yeah, such questions are also allowed. I don't know if I can be able to see your comments, but yeah. So basically, the Grand Prix events are just like a series of events planned throughout the year, which kind of contribute to how the nationals is going to take place. I'm not sure, so I don't want to have some misinformation. But yeah, I think basically there are a series of events that are taking place which get to decide on how the national to be played. I don't know if I'm correct again. Uh, I think one to be able to participate in the nationals, you have to at least participate in four of the Grand Prix events, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, I think one has to participate in four Grand Prix events. Yeah, I can see but on the game's up. E4, D5, the game's going on, sorry. E4, D5, yeah, interesting. That's the Scandinavian defense. It's a very tricky opening for black, opening choice for black, but let's see how the game goes. Ooh, some aggressive play from Boju. That's Chumba versus Peter Manyang. Or how do you pronounce that name? Mm-hmm. So far, so good. Yep. E6 now putting pressure on the C4 pawn. It's not the best idea to try and defend the pawn because black's next idea is just bishop takes. This pawn falls. This pawn is also hanging. Yeah, I think so far so good for black. Black is having the space to control the game, and white is also having some few problems which are not that significant at the moment. But yep, let's see how it goes. Moving on to the next pause, maybe we can just have a look at what's happening in Bodwan again. Still, mhm. You can see Samuel Guy against Hugh Misiko, uh, a very solid Sicilian line. Uh, Misiko just played e6 with plans to just starting to expound on the center, maybe develop Unite. Yeah. Oh, nice. Interesting. Jacob Lucy versus Panchol Madol. Panchol, a very aggressive player. You can just even see from the game. He's already played D5, C5 already, trying to get a piece of cake in the center. Panchol having a very good option. See, D takes on if in E4. Let me see. How does white respond to this? Also, C4 is also a dangerous line with such ideas. Or we just fast development. Let's see. Medo versus Toboso. Medo just made the first move, waiting for Toboso to play. Mm-hmm. Girongo versus Mehul. Oh, let's just see. E4. Mhm. Actually, kind of like White's position in this setting. That's Brian Mwangi versus Mehul. Yeah, Brian just played knight e5. Let's look at all the possible options. I can see we have bishop goes to f4, f4, just trying to also control the center. Which other idea could I have as white? Well, I don't know what about the pawn push. I don't know what the pawn push does, but I kind of like just still just getting some space in the center. Well, this knight might be a pain in the near future. So maybe actually now e5 and then f3 also makes sense. And yeah, but I would also like to just have like some developing ideas because it's the mild stages of the opening, so I don't want to have a lot of aggression. Maybe just continue with simple development plans. Knight e5 works, f3, knight comes to c3. Your bishop can later on come to either f4 or e3. And yeah, white is having a pretty solid structure at the moment. So far so good. But Bran just played knight e5. Let's see how Mehul responds to knight e5. Well, a ton of options. Knight d7 being one of them. I don't know if castles also work. We're just trying to get the rook into this semi-open file. Aha, knight d7 just got played. Let's see what's happening in the ladies section. d4, d5, knight f3, knight f6. A pretty symmetrical position at the moment. I think Madelta is the lady's favorite, right? Currently, let me just check. I think she's the top seed in the ladies category, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, she's the ladies top seed. Yeah, she is a rating of 1751. Oh, that's pretty solid. By the way, just as a side note, some 2, 3, 4 years back. Let me just say pre-COVID era. I think when chess was just still kind of rated. I think maybe Joyce was one of the top rated female players. But fast forward to the post-COVID era, that's 2024, 2025, and you can see a lot of improvement from the ladies section. Now they're having some solid ratings. I'm sure if I was placed in that category, maybe I could have been like number 10, if not number 15. But yeah, so that's also a very good improvement from the ladies category. You can see there's some strength. Daring, I remember having some chat with Lynn, and she was telling me the first experience as in 2004 going for their first Olympiad. And they had like, I think actually like the ladies were kind of beginners. Now imagine someone at that beginner level going for an international event. But right now, when we go for international events, we're not going there to get lucky. We know we're going there to win. So kudos to the ladies. Keep up the good work that you guys are doing. And now we also want to see a top rated female player, like maybe say a lady getting Kenya one in terms of rating, which will actually be good. I think that should be a challenge to the ladies. Now back to the games. Back to the games. Let's see what's happening on board one. Ooh, okay, okay. Mhm. Okay. But I think but two is these guys are just blitzing out their games. You can see with Peter has 1 minute 30 sorry an hour and 32 minutes on the clock, whereas Chumba has 1 hour 24 minutes on the clock. So it's a kind of fast game. I won't lie. I can't even keep up with the game. Let me just go back some few moves. Yeah, and now White's position is slightly bad, but still playable. Hmm, I think this pawn is a problem because now this knight is bound to be defending the pawn, but that's not an issue currently. I can see ideas such as maybe say a3 before should be cooking. Just white trying to get um, hold of the center and maybe just fianchetto your bishop so that you can try and chase away the knight, or even just a knight to look for activity for a knight, maybe start some pawn storm. I don't know. Let's see how the game unfolds. To button board 3. Yeah, not a lot happening. Just the pawn exchanges that are taking place earlier. Yeah, the vision is just still drawn. Let's see what's Black's plan. And guys, this is also my first time having a commentary, so kindly have mercy on me. But I'm open to ideas on how we can improve this. Shout out to Chess Kenya again for the big steps that you're making. Now at least the DGT boards are having a meaning in terms of the tournaments being played. So I think we'll be doing this more often. Let's see on how we can take the whole Kenyan chess culture to another level, and pretty much just making the simple starting steps and hoping for the best. Yeah, as I'd said, that's Irungu versus Mehul. Knight after knight e5 is played, then we're just obviously expecting f3 to follow. Maybe try to um, shun black away from just having this solid central control. I don't know. After f3, or the f3 is played, maybe say knight takes, pawn takes, knight takes, something like we take the pawn here. Yeah, I think we can do this, that, this. What's the idea? What's the idea? And yeah, Methu versus Brent Boso going for the more positional approach where they're just developing the pieces, controlling the center, not that much happening. Uh, Knight e2 is expected to play is expected to be played with the plans of just castling, maybe developing the bishop. The queen goes back, and yeah, okay, maybe black try an aggressive approach towards the queen side. Maybe say something like a6, push that, maybe bring the bishop there, or even if black white doesn't counter, just maybe push the pawn to b4, just trying to create some chaos in the queen side. Mhm. Height 6 played by Yak Garang. Just speaking of which, I think maybe the system they're using is kind of like an accelerated system where the strong players just get to meet each other at the opening stages of the game. So it's always a very interesting system because the action just the game's set off with some very good action taking place. And the bad thing about having such short number of rounds, that is such that's sorry, when you're having something like 6 rounds, then you have a small room for making a mistake, because once you just sleep in your first few rounds, whoever gets out with the maybe say a clean sheet will just most likely end up winning the event, because now you're meeting strong players at the start, and then as you're going, you're meeting relatively, I don't want to say weak players, but something like that. So yeah, it's just it keeps on getting easy, but not always that easy. I think it just it keeps on getting easy as the games progress. Ooh, nice. Chumba with an aggressive H4 pawn push. This knight is actually very pivotal in terms of Chumba's position, because it's just holding on to the pawn here, and it's also now supporting such pawn storms, and yet Black can't do anything because Black isn't having the light squared bishop or any pawn that can do a lot of harm to the knight. So he's actually enjoying the position. Let's see if he'll be able to get maybe if he'll be able to penetrate the king side. But also, Black is having a lot of activity in mostly on the queen side, and maybe save something like c takes his plate, then a rook get into this other open file can cause some chaos in the future. We'll see. We'll see. Samuel versus Hugh Misiko. Nothing much happening. You can see Misiko Hugh taking his sweet time. Goes for castling. Um, Also because we were not able to, because we aren't able to see much of the ladies action. I can only see Bodwan. Maybe I'll just like to share the pairings for the ladies section. I can see on Bodwan is Madelta versus Kadenge, as I said. Makanga Annabelle versus Nicole Albright. Oh, I would actually like to see the game. I would like to watch that game also. Ether is a very interesting player. Ether versus Blessing. Yeah, I think those are three games I would also like to watch them. Very interesting. Very strong players. Very good play. There we have like, I think, how many ladies? 20 ladies playing. Mm, sorry. I was actually hoping to see Kina Julie Mutisia and Kina Sasha Mongili playing. I thought they will show up in this event, but I don't know. I don't know why they're not around. They make chess even more interesting. Tough, a tough lot to play. I remember, when was it? Maybe last year. We were in a tournament at Wadi Degla. That was, I think, the Nairobi County Chess Championship, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, and I got to play Joyce Nero. I also got to play Sasha Mongeli. Well, snuck a win from Joyce, and also drew against Sasha. So I can tell you for a fact they're really strong, and I'm sure they've beaten a couple of open players, and that's why you're seeing even Joyce is never scared to always come and she'll flex her muscles in the open category. I don't know, maybe I'm a choker na pesa ya ladies. She wants a piece of the open cake, but we'll see. A piece of the cake in the open. That is the World One game. Peter responds with a6 after h6 after Chumba's h4. Or actually, in this position, I would dread to have a light squared bishop because it just makes your life easier. Just picture having a light squared bishop here, and then you're having this queen and bishop battery targeting this side. You're also having the other dark squared bishop attacking there, and that's why you normally hear a lot of people preferring to have the bishop pair, because such kind of attacks are very vital when someone is having a bishop pair. Currently, this bishop can't move because there's this rook and queen battery attacking the b pawn. So maybe say, yeah, you also wouldn't want to play. Is there any issue with playing b3? Yeah, b3 is just met with this. Then knight takes, then queen takes. What about the bishop coming here? So the bishop has two options. The bishop can come here, the bishop can go there. But I think, yeah, black is just slightly better. Black is slightly better once we decide to go back to that. No, no, I don't know. What about plans like a3? Met by queen here, queen takes, rook takes. Yeah, I think white is black is actually enjoying the space advantage because white has a lot of inactivity. The rooks aren't connected. The bishop can't get out because of this. So you have to play some very annoying moves such as queen a2. Well, you can go to queen. You can play rook b1 because of such tricks. Maybe say you capture there. Double is sneaky and black is yeah, black is better. Yeah, let me just rewind. Here versus somewhere okay. It's more of a Sicilian kind of opening. Bishop b4, castles, knight takes, queen takes, queen to e2, avoiding the queen exchanges. E5 is played, taking up more space in the center, also opening up for the bishop. But I don't know if bishop comes, and the bishop come here, maybe not. Let's see. After bishop g4, g5, bishop goes all the way back. Yeah. Such moves. Do they even work in this position? Actually, the question is what if they take? Yeah, that's a mistake. Going all the way back to d7, that's Jacob versus Panchol. Oh, I'm actually surprised Panchol is having an hour and 16 minutes on the clock. Panchol is actually, he loves blitzing. I won't lie, he loves blitzing. So when you see Panchol taking his time, then it means the opponent is giving him a hard time. Yeah, I was expecting him, he will be having something like an hour and 28 minutes on the clock. What I'm seeing, he's actually low time compared to Jacob. That's new. That's new. Oh, let's watch Matthew versus Brian Toboso. Looks like Brian made an inaccuracy at some point. Let's see. Toboso locking up the position. Mm. Mm. Looks like E5 isn't a very good choice in the position. Also played Bishop, pushed the pawn to E5. G3 is played. Bishop E7, Bishop G3, castles, knight goes to E2, knight H5, H3. Let's see what's about to happen. I think Mammoth is trying to put pressure on the king side. You want to not even play your queen up, so maybe Brand better be careful. Brand better be careful. But I think Method gave out his edge at some point. Back to Budwan. So the back to the games. Currently, no upset. You can see most of the positions just more or less equal. Most of the positions just equal. Oh, I'm actually enjoying this. I'm enjoying this game. So either way, I think watching in the comment sections, you guys can just maybe try and give out your tournament's favorite. I mean, which player are you guys expecting to win? And yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I want to see a prediction. Let's see who can get 6 out of 6, and who do you guys think is going to win this tournament? Maybe too early to say, but doesn't hurt to maybe just mention a name that you think is going to win. Well, my tournament's favorite is going to be I will go with Methu. I will go with Methu. I think Methu has he plays some very interesting Just I would say Methu and all the youngsters who will be playing there. Kina Jadon, kina who else was a youngster here? Nikikosa kukutaja, kindly don't blame me, but I will say I'm supporting Jadon. I've seen there's who else was playing? Let me think. I think Omondi Suleiman is also playing in the Nakuru Open. Yeah, Kina Zeki Mugo, some under 13 and under 12, under 14 kids who are playing really serious chess. And yeah, I think we might even like to have a junior getting a podium finish, or even worst case a top five finish, and that's very okay. Waiting to see what will Julia's reply. What will Julia's reply be after knight c3? Yeah, is played by Madelta. In the meantime, we can also be checking some other open games. Let's see what's cooking. Ooh, okay. Some. Mhm. Bishop h3 is played by Metal. Oh, currently, actually, I think taking here doesn't really open up the position as White would like to, so that you can have at least maybe these lines of attack. Because instead of just doing the knight takes, which is actually a mistake, one can just go for, sorry, the pawn takes, which is a mistake. You just go for knight takes. And I think black is no longer attack, is no longer afraid of White's attack. I don't know. Can you play something like Bishop h3 with plans of bringing the rook here, but also you have to think about castling. So maybe now this other rook is the one that comes and joins this attack. But also, White should always be on the lookout for any counterplay from Black. I don't know, is there any? I'm thinking of maybe just rerouting Unite, having this pawn storm, but it looks like it's a bit slow. But anyways, let's see how the game goes. So Bishop h3 is played, a more subtle approach, just building on the attack bit by bit. You don't want to overstretch your pawn push. Maybe Methods is trying to get as many options as possible as the game is going on. And it's been long since we saw the Bordeaux game. Let's see what's happening on this side. Yeah, the game's still quiet. White's king is castled, and I can see Black's king is still hovering around the center. It's White to play. I don't know. He's taking the. Yeah, you take with the. Do you take with the bishop or do you take with the pawn? Let's see. You take with the bishop. Yeah. Now you have two options. You can castle either queen side or you can castle king side. But which is the best? Personally, I think I would prefer maybe trying to castle queen side though. So that's a bit tricky because once the queen comes here, then bishop can be played there. And the queen, this attacks sooner or later. That's after this queen has moved out of the square. But that's a long way before we get into such an attack. I don't know. What about pawn takes? Maybe pawn takes will just be committing your pawn to staying in the center, and if pawn takes something like knight over there, or even rook to d8 can be played. Yeah, maybe we'll just like that pawn. Staying on d4. I think it serves its purpose well on d4 compared to having it on e5. And also once the knight has moved, then c3 is also a plan. Also a plan, yeah. The pawn on d4 actually stops the c5 or the e5 break. So moving it to the other side is also allowing the bishop to penetrate and have such very good lines of attack. Maybe having your pawn on d4 is the way forward, but I don't know. Let's see what Garang will play. Some two South Sudan nationals having a clash at the top board. We'll see who will emerge victorious at the end. In the end. Mhm. Chumba versus Peter. Chumba having a very good position. I think Chumba will be getting a pawn. The f7 pawn is hanging, but also there is a triple attack on this pawn. But no worries, also have one, two, three defenders. So far so good, and also such ideas are will be coming up. Yeah, I think once the queen moves, then queen takes check. Wherever you move, I just come and capture this pawn, and this is a fork. So black better watch out. Now Peter taking his time trying to think of how he'll stop this attack. Do you have any other option? Our rook is hanging. Our rook can't go back. Sorry, black's rook can't go back because of knight takes. There's that fork. What will black do? I think black might be in trouble. Or rather, black is in trouble in this position. Well, we might just want to go back a few moves and see where maybe black made a mistake. Oh, no. Oh, oops. Black went for knight takes with ideas of knight captures, and you get this. You get this. The bishop, basically having a pawn, but I think black hadn't anticipated of knight takes, rook takes the bishop, and queen goes to f4, and yeah, white is slightly better. White is slightly better. Yeah, so a tough game, a very interesting one. I think we'll come back to the game. Black a pawn up, but black's in trouble. Well, let me see. Can black really do this? That's even worse because queen takes. Let me say something like queen takes, and you wouldn't want to have such an imbalance considering you guys are having one, two, three, five versus 6 pawns. I think white will always be better in such a position. Really, very hard to actually convert this position considering black is also having some very good activity, and this bishop can actually be let me say something like queen takes, rook takes, you wouldn't want to take, you just go back. Yeah, this bishop might actually be quite annoying, but I'm sure with accurate play, then white will just get to convert the position. I don't know if a4 can be played. Rook goes over there, and maybe the other rook just comes to occupy this. And yeah, with some very good rook exchanges, rooks getting to the 7th rank, yeah, this might be a bit tricky for black to play against, especially when this rook gets to that very good rank. Uh, let's see how Peter will respond to Alan's very strong queen f4 move. Well, queen b4 can be played, but how does this really help after queen takes? Might actually even be. Oh, now you lose 2 pawns, you're in trouble. Actually, what if you capture there? Oh, that's a mistake because you gave out this other pawn. But how does one really lose in this position? Now this lost. Yeah. So you can't do that. Let's see. Queen comes. Pawn takes. Queen comes. Queen takes on f7. King goes to h8. You really can't capture this pawn because of this problem. But what if you capture there? But if now the queen captures there, then you're having this issue, and the game's lost. So you really want this knight to just stick around. I don't know if one play maybe a supporting move such as pawn to g3 in order for them to, in order for black to go to have such ideas, but also rook f8 might be troublesome. Now you're having not only three, but also a fourth piece joining this attack. So maybe in the near future, this pawn might actually fall. Yeah, white shouldn't get too comfortable. The game's actually far from over, and Peter isn't willing to give this game up that easily. Uh, you can just see some other games here, some other games going on. So far, so good. I can only say I think board two and maybe the ladies board one are Kadenge Julia still thinking of how to respond to knight c3. Let's go back to board two and see what's Peter going to do. Let's see what Peter is going to do. Mm-hmm. On board three, Samuel versus Himisiko. I think Hugh opting for a rook. Hugh opting for a rook trade. Mm-hmm. You have to take with the rook or the queen. Actually, you have to only take with the rook in this position, because the problem with taking with the queen is you give out this pawn. And also, if you try and maybe look for such mistakes, then bishop takes, and white is clearly winning. So let's see. I think rook takes. How does one get this bishop to participate in this game? I think pushing the pawn. Say if knight goes back, I think maybe trying to reroute this knight to this other side, something like a pawn push, and now this bishop is joining us. Bishop goes there. I really wouldn't like that exchange. Maybe I'll just keep my bishop. I like the light squared bishop here. I think it's very powerful when it has this diagonal compared to this other bishop. So I wouldn't want to exchange the bishop. Maybe just stick it around. Try and well, rook attacks. Just take it back. Oh yeah, actually, white has a very simple option. I don't know. Maybe I will go for h6. Doesn't do it, but I pretty much like h6. Remember, I want to have my bishop there. I feel like it's kinda an edge. It'll be an edge for black. Not really, because also white has a bishop there, and I like the white bishops because they're really active. Look at this bishop. The bishop is kinda a tall pawn, enclosed within its pawn's perimeters compared to this other bishop. So if you're opting for an exchange, then you better start thinking about eliminating this bishop, or maybe this bishop. But yeah, and I actually think of the idea. Oopsie, sorry. This position, maybe after a series of exchanges. Yeah, I actually like this idea. I don't know if h6 first, then knight comes here makes any sense. And this knight is always going to be related to this spot, ensuring that this queen. So this maybe, and after we've pushed the pawn here, this pawn, once the knight has gone to this other side, what's not happening here? Okay, Peter still thinking about what to do. I can see Ken Philip asking about Granit this game. Granit this game is actually not over. Here is Bandironko. No, that's he just played c5. Let's see how black responds to that. So c5, I think b6 was played. B6, b4, sorry, solidifying the. Now queen c4. Well, in the maybe in future, in the commentaries, we'll be having at least like two personnel having to have the commentaries. So feel free to share with me Abita Dennis. I don't know if you guys know him. Um, and whenever one wants to be invited to have some to help with some commentary, just feel free to um give us just share your request in the comment section, and in the maybe in the next games to come you'll also help us with the commentary. So feel free, anyone who wants to have some commentary, just feel free to do that. Yeah. E3 has just been played by Brand Irungu, and looks like a very good chance for Black to castle. Can Black open up the position? I don't think so currently. So they'll just have to look for a more positional approach. You just want to continue developing your pieces, having activity as they wait. Let's see how the ladies section is cooking up. Still no move has been played after knight c3. Bishop g3 has just been played by Madol. Garang, that is. I've just noticed Yak Garang and Madol Garang. Are these guys siblings? Hope sichokozi mtu. Just asking. I can see Garang versus Garang playing each other. So Bishop G3 has just been played. I think ideas such as F4 are on the table. Black having a pawn storm towards the king side. Bishop G7 just played. Yeah, this discovered attack is also coming. So knight captures here, attacking the queen. So queen can either queen e2 or queen e4 can be played. But isn't this point going to be lost regardless? I don't know. Let's see. Queen e2, then knight takes. Um, chase the queen away. King goes back. I really want to move this rook or the other rook. So if this other rook just takes here, and then knight takes or rook takes. Nothing much happening. You just put more pressure, and then that's played. Then maybe just play f4. I think White's having a very good position. After any move, I think Bishop takes here. This is going to be a very big weakness, though. At least Black has some very good lines of attack towards the king side, but these isolated double pawn frontier won't be that helpful for Black. But let's see, after Bishop d7, what does White play? And also, just to give people a heads up, Kiambu Open is coming soon. Also, another Grand Prix event. So you guys can just go to the. I think some posters are being shared. Always feel free to ask. We can also share the poster here so that you guys can be able to register. Or, as I've said, it's also a Grand Prix event, so it really helps in terms of uh, getting you to the what do you call it? I'm trying to look for the best word. I mean, you have to participate in 4 Grand Prix events for you to go for the national. So you better be able to know which Grand Prix events are taking place. C5 H5 has just been played. This is Samuel Guy against Hiyomisiko, as we had said. Oh, now the knight went to H4. Initially, we thought the knight was going to play knight D2, knight, knight, when the knight was initially on F3, knight D2, knight D3 sounded like a good plan, but instead someone had other plans, so the knight went to H4. The knight's not really doing that much on H4. Well, let me see. Is there a way maybe white is trying to route the knight? Knight G2, E3, D5. Does it really help? And also, this is a very aggressive approach for white. After rook takes, knight goes to H4, H4, G6, queen goes to F3. What's the idea? Trying to put on some pressure here, but after rook comes to D6 or D. Actually, instead of white having to defend with the rook, white just decided to activate the queen by playing queen D6, having that battery that might help in future. Also, just having your queen at least control some very good squares, because the queen's kind of dormant on C7, but it's relatively active on D6, so that's a good choice. After C5, rook E2 was played, and I feel like black is better. So even from just pushing G4 seemed like an inaccurate. Sorry about that. Mm-hmm. Let's see how. Mm-hmm. He thinking hard about bishop takes e4, I suppose. Maybe he's trying to figure out how the position will look like at the end. In the end, actually, bishop takes on g5 really doesn't cover the tempo, because white has just knight comes to f3. But recovering a pawn in a classical time control is also hard. So you better take the pawn. Some action bringing up on board one. Garang squared playing each other. Let's see how it goes. So after bishop g7, queen b4 was played. Queen went all the way back to c7, and now queen e3 has been played, attacking the a2 pawn. Knight b6 looks like a good move. I also like the prophylactic king b8. But now you're placing yourself into this kind of view that will just come sooner or later, especially after the pawn on e5 falls. Let's see, after knight b6, what's white's response? Because this knight is actually coming here, attacking this. But the queen can always go all the way back. Also thinking about this, you don't want the queen to go far from this pawn because there's a triple attack on the pawn. Oh yeah, knight just moves. And after knight comes here, then the queen always just goes there. Or even all the way back. Oopsie. Let's see how that goes. Let's see how the game goes. Let's go back to Chumba's game. Oh no, what happened? I thought Chumba had an upper hand at some point. Let's see what happened. They went into a series of exchanges. I don't know if maybe Chumba had some inaccuracies during the exchange, but let's see what happened. Oh yeah, and actually I think I was talking about this line. Queen goes all the way back. So actually you can let the rook go and see how the game goes though. Looks like mhm. And so it's an imbalance. We're having an imbalance on board two. That's Chumba versus Peter, and Peter also just played rook d2. Just trying to think after the exchanges, is the bishop really holding the position? Well, you can't go for queen takes because of this bishop slaps here check. That's an intermezzo. And I don't like the position for white. Oh, okay. Just want to note where. Oh, you actually really need to look for forcing an exchange. Well, you do that, I just take the pawn. Just take the pawn. I think, yeah, queen c3 was a hard move to find, but also the most appropriate move in the position, which kind of gives you a second pawn and also an edge. The more the pawns fall, the better for white, I think, because white is able to realize. You can see that now. Just fast forward to the game. Black is having these pawns, and I think they're going to be really tricky for white to deal with. Now the rook has to go back. I don't know if plans like yeah, Peter just gets this pawn. I was thinking of actually making up this position. Well, this can be played. The rook has to go back and maybe just start thinking of such ideas. I mean, you still try to maintain the edge, but how does it unfold? So maybe something like rook goes all the way back to supporting your second rank was worth it, and then trying to see how we can start a pawn storm, just trying to undermine black's pawn, black's queenside pawns by pushing a4. Maybe say the rook later comes to c1, putting pressure on the c6 pawn because this is a weak link. This is black's Achilles heel. So the better you attack this pawn, the more chances white has for winning the game. But back to the current position, let's see what happens. I also don't know what's wrong with pushing rook e2, just trying to, oopsie, oh, you're hanging your, yeah, that's a mistake. You just, rook goes here, just queen takes, rook takes, and black is clearly winning. So white, though the position isn't that bad, just gave out the edge, gave out the upper hand, and now after rook d2, you have to lose the a2 pawn. Wow, guys, I want to see comments. Let me hear which game you guys want to watch. You can also be giving your suggestions in terms of the moves that can be played on a specific board, or you can also request if we analyze a specific board. Just going back to board one, I can see the bar is just spiking, and Samuel Game is on the receiving end. Let's see what happened in the game after a series of moves. The last time we checked, they had exchanged, and knight h4 was played, g6, queen f3, and then after queen d6, we saw g4 being played. Then c5 was later played, then rook to e1, bishop. Oh, an interesting choice. Bishop e8, maybe trying to look for some good squares for this. Maybe just rerouting your bishop so that you can have some attack that's after bishop takes. Once the bishop goes, then if the pawn moves, then you're having a very good side line of attack towards the king side. Knight goes back. Knight goes back is a mistake, because now instead of even bishop takes, now knight captures, and there might be actually a few discovered attacks coming here, because now this bishop is actually very powerful. Oh my. After 4 minutes of thinking, Samuel just makes a mistake. Knight to g2. And now let's see if Q spots knight takes on e4. I can see Aston and Maurice Muchala, strong players. This will be an interesting competition. I like the decision by Nyarwai to switch to Oven. Yeah, I told you, Nyarwai is a tough nut to crack. She always likes creating some havoc in the open. So I'm sure she'll also do very well. In the open, I'm sure at some point she'll be playing in the top board, so you'll also be able to see her game, and you can see the way she's just playing uh some really strong chess. Oops, now you can see, yeah, Joyce is like the Kenyan Judith Olga, if I'm to say so. Her, the likes of Sasha, the likes of Julie Mutusia, some very strong Kenyan players. Really have to say Kenyan at the end. Don't mind me. Mm-hmm. Hugh taking his switch time. Maybe just trying to look at all the possible outcomes after either knight. Maybe I don't know what's the difference between bishop takes and knight takes. You guys can tell me in the comments what's the difference between bishop takes and knight takes. I think knight takes kind of gives black more options compared to just the direct um, bishop takes. And also the problem with bishop takes is sometimes even rook can just take, although that might be a mistake. Yeah, and maybe you even now this pawn became an easy target. So yeah, knight e4 looks like a very good move. But if I'm missing something, you guys can just tell me. So feel free to comment. And yeah, for all the viewers, just kindly give us a thumbs up. You can just like the stream. You can just like the stream, sorry. And also subscribe to the Chess Kenya YouTube channel so that you can always stay tuned for any upcoming stream or any update in terms of all the games taking place across the country. Yeah, so kindly don't forget to give us a thumbs up. Thank you. Ooh, Kadenke Julia just taking her sweet time. I think she's taken almost an hour thinking about what to play after knight f3. Maybe we'll just take a quick look at board one. Knight b6 was played. Knight b6 was played. So either queen goes there, or does now knight e4 really work? No, the game is just dead drawn. So queen all the way back, just trying to restrict the knight from coming here. But what if the knight goes there? I'm just taking. Let's see what white will play. Tumba's game now approaching the end game. The rook on the second rank is actually so powerful because it's now limiting this rook from ever getting out of this file. Then you can see that the bishop just being anchored onto this square using this pawn is very powerful. Actually, white needs to be really careful because of this central pawn majority. They might just end up causing some havoc for black. And then the good thing is for white, sorry, and then the good thing for white is this rook is actually very mobile. The rook is very mobile. This rook might just not do, might just not cause a lot of problems at the moment. I don't know. Just feel like black has an edge here considering these pawn pushes are very strong. And remember, this rook can't get out of this file as long as this rook and this bishop are targeting that square. I don't know. Maybe at some point will white think about sacrificing a rook for this bishop. Not the best idea because now black will just piece some pawns up. I think for the human eye, this game just looks terrible for white. Though the computer says the position is equal-ish. Chumba taking his time, trying to think of what to play. Rook b7, or the rook just maybe trying to rook b7 check, trying to look for a way to cause some problems on front. This front. We'll see. We'll see. Oh, let's see what happened. So knight captures was actually played, and now knight d2 attacking the queen has also been played. Now he was just cruising. He's enjoying the position. He's enjoying the moment. This bishop very strong, very strong. Especially after the pawn was lost. Now this bishop is hanging. This other bishop is hanging. The queen's in trouble. The rook isn't doing that much. I think white has a couple problems to deal with. We've not watched Panchol's game for quite some time. Maybe we might just want to have a look. Also approaching the end game. The game is dead drawn. Not much taking place. I think they just have the same material. Same colored bishops. Rook a7 has just been played. Nothing to worry about. No light squared bishop. No dark squared bishop. The rook's doing a good job defending the pawn. Yeah, nothing much. The bishop is also having some very good lines of attack, controlling a lot of squares. Oh, Meto's game. Meto's game. Oh, someone's king is in trouble. What happened? Just let me rewind. What happened? Meto versus Toboso. It looks like Meto actually finally managed to just break open the black king side. Or Meto just gave sacrificed a pawn. In exchange, he started getting some lines of attack. Queen back, pawn takes, bishop goes back to h3, bishop takes, rook takes. Rook goes all the way to the b file. Also, maybe just trying to look for counterplay that is some a3 ideas you really can't capture because of this check. Let's see what happened. Rook to g1 was played. King starts escaping for his life, and then the battery knight e8, and rook just goes rook g5, not even rook g8 check, rook g5, rook g5. And also my whole game. Oh, oh. Well, this is not the best pawn to have in such a position. The pawn's kind of overstretched. It's being attacked with the queen, with the bishop. The other bishop always has some eyes on the queen. And I think maybe in the maybe after a couple moves you'll see white trying to just break open the center, also activating the other bishop. The king hasn't yet castled, so actually breaking center is a very good idea for white. Just trying to intimidate the king, because why not? But currently I just have what's wrong with just taking the pawn? Julia kind of getting herself into time trouble. Madelta has an hour's advantage, but let's see. Oh, a very interesting end game. That's Chumba versus Peter. You can see now, as we had talked earlier on about the, how the king just came into play. G5 was played. The king is actually becoming very centralized. And now such pawn was just easily up because this rook can never get to the king in good time. Well, how does this work? Just pawn takes. The rook tries to maintain this edge, just push the pawn. And yeah, okay. Let's see how Chumba Alan responds to King E5. Guys, I'd just like to take a quick break. I'll be here in the next 5 minutes. So for those who are watching, just kindly stay tuned, keep on subscribing, like our content, and always feel free to comment on whichever game you would like us to continue analyzing. And yes. Number one, Madol having a very good position, a very superior knight compared to the bishop. The the black queen is kind of having limited options at the moment. This pawn is kind of stretched. But let's see. After f3, well, queen takes and then bishop takes. And what next? Ooh, okay, yeah. Yeah, I think the whole idea is maybe just bishop comes here. Well, the main aim as to why white is just playing the rook move is to try and see if the queen can be able to get this pawn, and then once this pawn falls, then automatically e6 becomes a weakness. And yeah, when white is able to eliminate these central pawns, then you just need to look for a way to have some very active king side play. Maybe try as much as you can to just keep on exchanging the pieces so that you can realize this pawn majority advantage for white, that is. But we'll see how Madol plays the game. Chumba isn't enjoying the position currently. Well, he initially had a very good position. Ended up misplaying after just getting the material advantage. And Peter actually played really well to be able to just consolidate the position. And yeah, now after queen takes, pawn takes, rook to f3, rook to a2, rook goes to c1, occupying the open file. King goes to f8. Now Peter is also trying as much as he can to just activate the king. And I think that's going to be a bit chaotic for Chumba, because now this is the position. Chumba has 11 minutes on the clock, so you can imagine, on top of just having a very hard position to play, he's also now having some time trouble. Though the good thing is the format again is 90 minutes plus 30-second increment per move. So basically, you really you can get into time trouble, but the good thing is at least you can just blitz out a couple moves, get some extra 5 or 10 minutes, and then you can just try and use those minutes to just calculate and think about those hard positions that you'll be having. So Chumba Allen suffering both position wise and also now getting into time pressure. Let's see how Okonga versus Samuel's game is going on. Oh, okay, a couple of exchanges have taken place. The last time I checked, we were actually thinking about knight takes, bishop takes, knight went to d2, queen went to f6, knight takes on c4 first, queen takes, rook takes, bishop goes to e7, attacking the rook. So the rook has two options: either go there, go to d5, or go to a6. What's the issue going to d5? I think going to d5 just kind of. Well, does black want to keep on trading, or black is just okay giving out the pawn, just having a very solid position to play? Oh, nice. And yeah, now Hugh has two pawns. This is a very dangerous outside passed one. And now the white bishop is under attack. Let's see what white does. Chumba now has 9 minutes on the clock. 9 minutes on the clock and counting. Yeah, he doesn't want to get into. And the opponent has an hour and 6 minutes. You can imagine how sometimes just really drains you. So you're just looking at the position, not really finding the best move. So according to the engine, the position is just black is slightly better. Rook takes on basics has been played, which is actually just, I think, a blunder in this position. Well, you don't want to give out the rook for the bishop yet. Maybe just kind of stall and see what um, black does. But Chumba just decides to get that. I was actually having 31 minutes on the clock, not the 9 minutes I was looking at earlier. Now he just played knight c3, just paving way for the passed pawn, just keep on cruising. And once the pawn gets to a2, then the knight comes to b1, you can just push the pawn. And actually, the sad thing is the bishop can never try to stop the pawn, just simply because of this very strong pawn. And if the knight just tries to attack the pawn, just push on f6, just adding more, putting more pressure to that pawn. So it's a tough game for Samuel to play. Knight c3 has been played. Just forking the two pawns, the pawn on a4, the pawn there. Yeah, nothing much in Panchol's game. That's against Jacob. The position is still drawn. I think Panchol is just trying to maneuver his way around, having a very good pass pawn on a3, but the problem is, they're having the same colored bishops. So Panchol has to look for a way of just trying to trade off the bishops, though still, as long as this king is in this corner, then the pawn isn't of much help because the king just needs to come and hide behind these pawns. Maybe one of Black's plan should just maybe try and reroute the king all the way to this other side. Might take a couple moves, but if the king is able to just support this pawn, then I'm sure the pawn can get somewhere. That's Panchol versus James Madol, and now back to Matthew's game. The king, yeah, the king walk has just taken place. The king had to move from g8, then went to f8, then e. Let's just look at the king walk. Yeah, after the king side was just the king side pawns were shattered, the king had to look for a very good escaping route. You can see the way the king had to make a couple moves, and now the king side is just barren. No pawns, no active pieces, just only middle pieces hovering around this side, trying to have lines of attack. And you can see there's this very good discovered chirp coming up. And still remember this pawn has to stay there, because once the pawn just moves and rook captures on b2 check. After king c7, queen g8 has just been played. What's the plan? Keep on pressuring the f pawn. Looks like the weakling. But after f6, what does white do? I'm even sure can such tricks work in this position, or it's just kind of giving white the extra space. So after rook comes here, then the queen just comes here. Now this pawn is gone because once you go back or wherever you go, there's this issue. So the knight really can't challenge the queen, even though you think you're having this kind of a discovered attack, just simply because white has a simple solution to the position. But let's see what Brian Tobos will play. We can just have a look at the ladies' game. We can just have a quick look at Brian Irungu versus Mehul. Ooh, Brian's king is just not having enough cover to play. Bishop h4 coming. Well, see the position is 3 minor pieces against 2 minor pieces. Well, black is having the bishop h4 check, pinning the king to the rook, but really doesn't do that much. I think white has a very good position in terms of activity. And also, not forgetting this passed pawn, which can just actually just cruise to victory because this knight is supporting the promoting square. So that means the rook can really never go to a8. Maybe say something like just moving your queen to g8, but that just binds your queen to defending the pawn forever. And if something like maybe the knight goes back and the queen joins that attack, it's going to be pretty hard for black to just try and find the possible solutions to all the troubles he's having. Maybe now the past pawn, also activity, not having enough material to play. I just want to figure out where. Well, the knight was attacked. Black gave out the knight. I'm not sure if that was a good idea. Black just gave out the knight. King captures, pawn takes, pawn takes. Then we'll see if bishop h4 will be played. So far, so good. Brand's position is really solid. Let's see what Mehul's response will be. Yeah, bishop was played, and then king f3 has just been played. So bishop takes, and the other bishop just captures here. Well, you don't have to take with the rook. Remember, the rook is just having some very good work in terms of holding on to the passed pawn. And also, we want this bishop to always just come here and help with holding on to the king side. The king is just kind of naked, so you might want to have just an extra layer of defense that is stopping such ideas. And also this other bishop. The good thing with having the bishop pair, as you can see here, is the bishops are just really doing a good work in terms of supporting the king. Now, once the bishop comes here, the rook can really never come here trying to put pressure on this other pawn. And after bishop comes here, then this other bishop can always just come here, putting pressure on this other side, at the same time ensuring this rook never gets to the h3 square to maybe just try and check the king. And then maybe say the rook tries to come here, we can always have our king going to g2. So the king and also the bishop just doing a very good prophylactic work, just working hand in hand. Also, I don't know if bishop here allows our king to always go to this other side, because the bishop scissors can be a very good idea. So we want this bishop somewhere here. The dark squared bishop here, and then the light squared bishop also here, and the bishops can just kind of help themselves. Once the rook gets there, the king is out of the third rank. Brian Irungu has actually a very good shot this game. So let's see if bishop takes will be played or rook takes will be played. Maybe let's just go back and have a look at the board one. Rook c4 has just been played. So instead of the pawn f3 push that you're thinking about, that was, pawn f3, queen takes, bishop takes, rook d4 was played, queen g4 attacking the bishop. The bishop went all the way back to f8. Instead of the knight capturing the pawn on f4, queen g8 was just played, queen e7, and finally queen h7. Pawn push, you don't have to take, just push to g3. Rook c4, putting pressure on the c2 pawn. But once the knight just moves, then the queen just defends the pawn. And white just always also has to look for a way to get rid of this pawn. I think it's going to be a weakness in black's position, simply because it's just overstretched and no other piece can defend it. Black is trying to get some counterplay, just in terms of just give out the pawn, and also white has these two problems that he has to deal with. That is, after the rook gets to c3, after maybe say something like knight goes there, rook goes to c3, but you also have a very simple idea. Queen e3 supporting, defending the pawn, at the same time challenging the rook. If the rook moves back, then we just get the pawn for free. If the rook takes, if rook takes the pawn, pawn takes, and then now the king can just come attack the other pawn. So something like knight goes there. Maybe say if the rook comes here, then you just don't have to necessarily play there. You can just go there, takes. If the king comes there, then just come here. If pawn takes, we'll just take the pawn. And I feel like white's position is okay. Takes, pawn takes, then queen takes. Now, after the king captures this pawn, then at least we might want to start creating a. We already have a passed pawn. We have a pawn majority that's 2 versus 1 pawn, so we can always just try and exchange, get an extra passed pawn over here. Ensure we still have our queen around, so that we can maybe just cut off the king from coming to this other side of the board. We also have some pawns up for grabs. We have the f3 pawn falling in a few. We also have in a few moves, maybe in the next move probably, we also have the knight pawn on h6, which is hanging. So a lot of positional loopholes for black, though the game can just always go both ways. You never know. But let's see the current position. What's happening? After rook c4, what will Madol Garang's response be? You can see Franz Kiriche asking, can a pawn be stopped? Um, which game is that? Just let me just have a quick look at the games. Um, I'm assuming that's the game. Brian Irungu versus Gohil. Actually, Brian went for rook takes instead of bishop takes. Maybe just he needed to centralize his rook. Not seeing the whole point. I'm assuming something like bishop either to d3, targeting maybe just trying to have this future attack bring up. Well, I actually liked the rook on a1. Francis asked if a pawn can be stopped. Well, it can by the cost of the queen being very inactive, because you can't stop the pawn with the rook. You have to stop the pawn with the queen. That is when, let me just take the move back. Here, after, let's assume maybe say bishop was played, or even after, before exchanging this position. This rook is doing a good job in terms of making sure that once the pawn gets here, the queen can never capture the pawn. And this knight is also doing a superb job of ensuring the rook can never support, I can never just try and defend the pawn. So, in my opinion, I will say the a pawn when the rook was on a1 was kind of unstoppable. I'm pretty sure that's still the same case, even if the rook comes to e1, because the rook can always go back to a1. So, yeah, the pawn can be stopped by the cost of number one, just having a very inactive queen. Or even worst case scenario, you'll have to just sacrifice some material to think about how you can get rid of the pawn. Such ideas as bishop goes all the way back also come in handy. But remember, with just enough pressure as the pawn is being pushed, black will just be forced to give give up some material, so that the pawn can no longer be able to advance. Just trying to neutralize the pawn by sacrificing either a bishop or even sometimes a rook. And we'll see. We'll see. But let's see how Brian plays. Brian just decided to go for rook takes on e1 instead of bishop takes e1. And let's see if he'll start pushing the pawn. Hope I've answered your question. Rook check has been played. Was played. Let me see. Oh no. Did Mehul just blunder a rook? Oh my. Let me just go back. I can see king h3 check. King went to g2, attacking the rook, and Mehul played bishop c8. Oh my goodness. Chess is really tough sometimes. So king takes. Who says no to free candy? Queen h7 check, and the king just goes back to g2. Rook b7 has been played. The game's going on, I think, at this point. Mehul will probably have a hard time to get back into the game. Losing a whole rook is just bad. While Madol continuing to stretch his advantage, I can see rook e3 has been played. Now the pawn can no longer be protected. Maybe just hope for Hail Mary. King went to g2, attacking the rook, and Mehul played. Once this pawn falls, then the second pawn to fall is always going to be the f7 pawn. And you don't want, trust me, you don't want to have a rook and a queen just hovering a rank above your king. Chumba Allen still fighting for survival. You can see the game's not up. But the analysis says the game is drawn, although black is having an extra pawn. Well, these double pawns are just weaknesses. This actually just counts as one pawn because they really can't do that much. Maybe say if they were, maybe say if black had an extra pawn in separate files, maybe say another pawn on e3, and then this other pawn, then that could have been a different case. I'm sure pretty much black won way better, but now they are all being stopped by a single pawn. And the king always has an escape square to this other side. Maybe black's idea should be just something like king goes to g4, king comes to h2, but this rook will cause chaos here. So yeah, the game's pretty much drawn. Black is having an extra pawn, but black can't really do that much in terms of advancement because of this very annoying white rook on a8. Let's see how Hugh's game's going. Still having a series of exchanges. Rook c6 has just been played. Now the bishop and the knight are all under attack, and the a pawn is also becoming a menace. After some time, I'm sure we'll start seeing some king activity. Maybe the king just trying to come and support this pawn, especially once this dark squared bishop is gone. And if say knight takes, bishop takes. Sorry, if knight takes, then rook takes, stopping these 2 pawns is going to be a bit hard. But let's see. After knight takes, rook takes, knight takes the pawn, rook comes here, then the rook always has to come back to defend the pawn, and then the bishop finally comes there. Rook goes to b2. I'm thinking of even just before king d7. What about the pawn push? Rook takes, comes here, just push the pawn, check. After the king comes here, then the rook comes here, but you just, yeah, I think at this point, yeah, wow, it is just lost. White is completely lost. And if this comes into action, you can either start pushing the pawns or even just try as much as you can to activate your king. And after maybe say this pawn is pushed, now actually in this position, black is 2 pawns up. I mean, being a pawn up, maybe say if black only had this extra pawn, and then here we had 3 pawns versus 3 pawns, then the game could have been at least playable. But now black is having an extra pawn, so that means that maybe after a series of exchanges, we're also getting an extra pass pawn in this other side. It's going to be very hard for white to try and stop 2 pawns using the same rook. Pretty much just trying to kill a bird, 2 birds with a single stone. Knight takes b4 has just been played. Let's see if rook to c4 will also be played. And also remember, white is also having some back rank issues at some point. Maybe say some pawn storms. Push the pawn. When the pawn gets here, then the rook just comes somewhere here. That's mate. So someone also has to think about that. Yeah, I think some also I can see some other games just coming to an end. Again, I'd say this tournament has some really strong young players. Let me just call them prodigies. The likes of Kinamali Mugo, the under 8 national champ. We also have a very strong player, Zeki Mugo. I think they've just completed their games, yet to find out the score. But yeah, good stuff to all the young chess enthusiasts out there, those who are playing in Nakuru, just battling with the Titans. Keep up the good work, Kinamali and Kinazeki. Good stuff. Bodwan, nothing much happening. You can see Yak still trying to figure out how to deal with the very threatening rook e3 move. Let's see what he'll play. Well, after b6, just the knight just goes back. If the rook, oopsie, sorry. If the rook just comes back, yeah, we can just get the pawn. This, get the extra pawn, and as I had said, you don't want to have that rook and the queen just attacking the 7th rank. That's going to be chaotic for black. But let's see how Yak responds to rook e3. Let's also have a look at Chumba's game. Now, a series of exchanges has been made, and the other pawn is just lost. Yeah, the game's just completely drawn. It's more of a, how do you call it? Is it a Lucena or a Philidor position at this point? So white has nothing to worry about as long as the king is always in front of this pawn and the rook cuts off the king, this king, then the position should be a dead draw. or even just try and maneuver the king, bring the king here, threaten a series of rook exchanges. The king comes to attack this other pawn as you're also threatening to push the pawn. And yeah, that game so far so drawn. Let's see how the game goes. I can also see Hugh is really stretching his win. After knight b4, we are waiting to see if he'll play rook c3, rook c4, sorry, or if he's having any other ideas, such as even maybe a pawn push. You never know. Mm. Also, Panchol versus Onditi Jacob. Position still drawn, though Panchol is still holding on to his extra pawn. Let's see how the game unfolds. Brantabosa versus Methu. What just happened? I thought Methu had an edge at some point. Oh, Methu didn't go for the very aggressive Queen G8, just putting pressure on this pawn, forcing Toboso to push the pawn, but instead Methu went for the more subtle Queen G4, King move, King still went back, pawn push, Rook to H5, King keeps on looking for some very good the King's just looking for a fortress in the Queen side. I don't know if now is a good time to capture here, but you can well see actually this pawn's inactivity is just brought about by this knight because the knight stops the pawn from having to open this file simply because once the pawn takes, then rook just gets into that square. And now is there a way maybe white would like to eliminate the knight? I think knight c1 is possible. Just knight c1 challenging the knight. If the knight doesn't go back, you just capture the pawn. The rook comes to stop the pawn from queening, from promoting. Sorry. But queen c8 has been played by Toboso. Can see someone asking Erongo's game? Let's go to Erongo's game. Erongo still having an edge.